Welcome to True Crime Garage. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Nick, and with me, as always, is a man who has more skeletons in his closet than Vincent Price. Here is the Captain.
They call me Mr. Bones. It's good to be seen and good to see you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for telling a friend.
This week, we are very excited to be drinking Panhandle American Wheat by the fine brewers down at the Texas Cannon Brewing Company. Panhandle American Wheat is an unfiltered wheat beer with a bready, bright, lemony character. Delicious ABV 5.5%, garage grade 3 and 3/4 bottle caps out of 5. And I want to give some thanks and praise to all of our good friends and folks who have donated to us and to the beer fund over the years. Last year in 2025, we were a big-time donor to an organization that we were very proud to help out. It's called Keeping Our Girls Safe. It's COGS. So Keeping Our Girls Safe, KOGsafe.com if you want to learn more. That is a victim advocacy program, but they aim at preventing violence against women and girls by protecting our women and our girls, by teaching them self-defense classes that are free and offering methods to escape a violent offender. They're doing great work, and we were one of their big donors last year, and that was because of all of you who contributed to last year's beer fund. And this year, they are doing another event. This is their spring purse bingo event. If you want to learn more, if you want to go to that event, I went to their fall event last year. This will be April 25th, 2026. It's in Northwest Ohio, and you can learn more by going to KOGsafe.com. Again, thank you to everybody who contributed to the beer fund.
Yeah, BWRUN Beer Run for everything true crime. Check out truecrimegarage.com. Sign up on the mailing list. And if you need more True Crime Garage for your earballs, check us out on Patreon or Apple Podcast subscription. And Colonel, that's enough of the BS Neos.
All right, everybody, gather around, grab a chair, grab a beer. Let's talk some true crime. Friday the 13th lore stems from a combination of Christian, Norse, and historic superstitions, viewing the day and number as uniquely unlucky. Key origins include the 13th guest, with Judas being the 13th guest at the Last Supper, who betrayed Jesus. Jesus was crucified on a Friday, cementing the day as unlucky. In Norse mythology, Loki, the 13th god to arrive at the Feast of Valhalla, brought chaos and death by causing the murder of Balder the Beloved. Further, on Friday, October 13th, 1307, King Philip IV of France ordered the mass arrest of the Knights Templar, reinforcing the date's negative reputation. Historically, 12 is often viewed as a number of completeness, 12 months, 12 apostles, making 13 a disruptive and unlucky number. And of course, there is the popular slasher film movie franchise Friday the 13th. Originally, the title Friday the 13th was used to attract investors before having a script aiming to capitalize on the superstition. In this scenario, it proved to be good luck as the franchise completed 12 movies. The film series centers on Jason Voorhees, who drowned as a child at Camp Crystal Lake due to counselor negligence. Decades later, the lake is rumored to be cursed and is the setting for a series of mass murders. The films were great and great fun for late Friday night viewing, but that was the work of fiction. Today's story is real. Welcome to True Crime Garage. In the small, quiet town of Panhandle, Texas, where life moved at a gentle pace, the summer of 1990 was about to be shattered by an event so violent that it would sear into the town's memory forever. For lawmen working in this area, the night of Friday, July 13th, Friday the 13th, 1990, would stand apart from all others. It was a night that defied the very nature of this peaceful community. The chaos began in the dead of night while the residents of Panhandle were sleeping, many of their doors unlocked and windows open to let the cool night air in. But danger was running and creeping through their streets. The first call came in to law enforcement reporting a brutal attack. So officers arrived at the home of a Jimmy Britton to find a horrific scene. Britton was bleeding. He was awake. He was responding, but he was bleeding profusely from multiple slash wounds across his torso. Despite this attack and terrible injuries that he sustained, he was able to identify his attacker here, Captain, and his attacker was a young man, Kenneth Glenn Milner. In fact, he knew this young man fairly well because Kenneth Glenn Milner was the ex-boyfriend of his stepdaughter. He's known to everyone as Glenn. This is a teenager who was no stranger to the local law enforcement. Jimmy Britton had considered Glenn Milner bad news and told him to stay away from his stepdaughter, and he did everything he could to keep the young man away from his stepdaughter. It looks like that decision, that action, resulted in revenge from the young man, a violent, unprovoked assault, and nearly deadly at that.
Yeah, but normally when the scary older stepfather says, stay away from my daughter, the individual stays away. They don't come back and attack.
So, Captain, this Kenneth Glenn Milner, known to everyone in the town of Panhandle, he's 19 years old. He's a bad seed. He's difficult to kind of sort out because, from my understanding, in school, he's a good student. He gets good grades. He's considered to be smart, but he is, as said, he's had a few run-ins with police, and that is why Jimmy Britton believed him to be a bad seed, to be bad news for his stepdaughter, for his family, and didn't want the youngster coming around. Based off of the injuries that Jimmy sustained and seeing pictures of him after this attack, I am convinced that Glenn Milner only left the scene of that attack because he thought that Jimmy would die, that he would die from these injuries that bleed out. I don't know exactly what condition he was in when Glenn fled the scene, but I mean, he took a razor and cut this man up very, very badly. And the community's concerns about Glenn, as said, were not new. He was considered to be a troubled young man. He had alarming behavior. From my understanding, a couple years prior to this attack that he committed on this Jimmy Britton on Friday the 13th in 1990, a couple years before this, Glenn Milner had climbed up to the top of the town's water tower, and he was up there very vocally and publicly threatening to jump from the water tower, this after a breakup with his girlfriend at the time. And police, of course, respond to that scene then, and they were able to talk the teenager down before he would, so he didn't jump, obviously, but they talk him down. And not long after that, it's like another suicide attempt. He drove his car off of a cliff in Palo Duro at the Palo Duro Canyon, and he survived this as well. And following these incidents, he was admitted to a psychiatric hospital.
Right.
They believe that he got better, and he was then in turn released. And
sure, he did.
Well, a lot of experts actually think now, looking back and reflecting on this, that Glenn Milner was probably smart enough to figure out what answers he should be giving them,
Right.
rather than how he truly felt, or if he was, if the treatment took, right? If he was actually feeling better or doing better. But for whatever reason, we can't jump into his mind and know for certain, but he was able to convince them that he should be released. And so he returns to life, back to normal, and goes back to school and resumes all of the normal teenager activities until leading up to this attack, where we will later learn that folks very close to him, at least one individual in particular, said that they noticed a change in Glenn leading up to this attack on Jimmy Britton. And thankfully, this man, Jimmy, was able to survive this horrific attack.
Well, there's a lot of problems in general just with young men, and we can speak on this because we both went through it. You have a lot of testosterone pumping through you. Got your hormones are going wild. You're not fully formed. Your brain's not fully formed. You have a lack of emotional maturity in the late teens, early 20s. Could be also onset, like schizophrenia. Normally doesn't start showing signs until late teens, early 20s. But this is attempted murder. And why they didn't see it that way, I don't understand. I mean, these injuries now, I've seen different reports, but a lot of them say that because of you're cutting a dude with a razor blade, 200 some stitches. That's a lot of stitches, my friend.
Oh, yeah. I believe they fully thought that this was attempted murder. As said, I think everyone who experienced this, who witnessed Jimmy, who were there to help Jimmy and save him, believed that the youngster thought he had killed him before leaving the area. And so now they have this situation where we have a young man on the loose. We know who the suspect is. Thankfully, our witness was able to speak and tell us who attacked him. So the authorities are now looking for Glenn Milner. It's priority number one. The police, they went to Glenn's family's home. His parents claimed that they didn't know where Glenn was.
Do we know the thoughts that his parents had on their son? Because some people, when they have a teenage son that's losing control, or they feel like they're losing control of, they're afraid of that individual.
Well, that I don't know. But what I do know is law enforcement said that when we arrived at Glenn's home, first they expected to find the teenager there.
Right.
When they speak with his parents, and they said, well, we don't know where he is. He left the house a while ago. They said in reaction to that, they didn't fully believe the parents. So they insisted on searching the home. They thought they would find Glenn held up somewhere in that house.
Right.
And so they got pistols drawn and they're going through the home. And then when they get to Glenn's bedroom, they said that the room itself was, I believe one officer referred to it as a chilling window into a disturbed mind.
Yeah.
This kid, I mean, spoiler alert here, this kid, pure evil, 19 years old, pure evil. So when they go into the room, the walls are painted black. They were thinking they would see like a typical teenager's room, right? Like posters of rock stars or athletes on the walls.
Yeah.
But he had posters up, but they weren't rock stars and celebrities. They were grotesque, bloody posters from slasher films.
Mm.
And Glenn had a collection of a dozen or more grotesque masks that were lying about in this room. And most of these were ones that he had created and made himself. He was actually described as quite talented at making these types of masks.
Almost like a fictitious version of Ed Gein, right?
Well, and he did contribute to the drama class in the drama club in high school. And there was at least one or two people in that club that thought that Glenn could go on to work in Hollywood and make things for special effects and make props for slasher films.
Yeah, and it's very disturbing, but like you said, it's Friday the 13th.
One of these masks looked like a face that had been partially or mostly blown away. And the officers said that the most shocking discovery in this room was a lifelike corpse that was lying on the floor. A fake lifelike corpse that was lying on the floor. And they said that the room looked like a scene out of a horror film. Again, revealing a warped sense of reality in an unhealthy, violent, dangerous young man.
I'm just going to say what everybody's thinking. Was he having sex with this doll? This corpse-like.
So this corpse, this thing that looked like a corpse, I have some more descriptions in here later in my notes, I believe. But from my understanding is he would use this to act out what would be scenes in a slasher film, like a fictitious slasher film. This was something that he would stab it to see how it would react and create fake blood. There's also one of his friends who had said that he used it one time to put a prop gun in its mouth and then used an explosive to blow out the back of its head.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. And of course the officers don't know this when they're going through the room, but the one officer said, when we first saw it, we thought it was a body. Yeah. And they didn't know if it would be Glenn's body. Maybe the teenager committed suicide, or maybe it was or maybe it was a victim. They had to approach it, and it was once they got close enough, they realized that this is a fake, but a very lifelike looking corpse lying on the floor. But so they don't find
describe how the room smelled. Was there a smell?
I don't know if there was a smell.
Well, I'm just saying, like, because like when you're a teenager and you have a new buddy and they visit your house, and so that's your domain, right? Your room, and especially during the 90s, spent a lot of time in your room, and you would decorate it, and it wasn't just for your amusement; it was for when people came over. Hey, check out my room! I got a TV in here, or I got these posters up, or it's kind of.
I got a lifelike corpse lying on the floor.
Yeah, but it's like a vision board of your life, right? It's a representation of all the things you are or all the things you think you are at the time. So it's a very sacred place. And we've all been there where we go into our buddy's room and it's awesome. And it's so cool. And he has a guitar in the corner, and he has all this cool stuff, right? And then we've also gone into our teenage, especially boys hanging out with other boys, right? You go to your buddy's house and his house is really cool and clean. And then you go into his room and it's a disaster, and it stinks, and it smells like gym shoes, and it smells like a gym locker, but
smells like a teenage boy.
Right. And you're like, this is a funky smell in here. I can't even describe it. It smells like some kind of weird mushroom growing in the corner. But like you said, here's the smart guy, maybe not applying himself in the correct ways, but he also shows some talent as an artist. So as a parent, there's that fine line of like trying to nurture your child, try to give him space to be creative, because look, there's a lot of individuals that end up making a lot of money and having very successful careers doing stuff that some people could look at as morbid or macabre or whatever, right? Just like if somebody went into your room in your late teens and they see a bunch of books on serial killers, they might go, wow, Nick's kind of crazy. And then, well, you do a hit true crime podcast and it makes all the sense in the world now, right? So I think that's a very difficult situation for not only his parents to be in, but friends and teachers and whoever to figure out, is this a morbid obsession that's going to lead to, like you said, evil, or is this a creative individual that I just don't fully understand?
Yeah. Well, what they're learning right here in this moment is that he was
He creatively attacked and attempted to kill Jimmy Britton.
Right.
Now, the worst thing that they find in this bedroom isn't
I thought you already said
lifelike
it.
corpse. No, we got a lot to get to here. So they find a handwritten list. And of course, because it's in his room, they believe that it was written by Glenn Milner. This is described as a hit list. And Jimmy Britton's name was at the top of the list. So this list contained names of high school students and adults. One member of law enforcement described it as a chilling blueprint for a spree of violence. So they're looking at this list and they now fully understand what they're dealing with. This kid has attacked and attempted to kill Jimmy Britton. At some point, he's going to move on to number 2, and it might be tonight. So we better find him as quickly as we can. And while we're looking for him, we need to send some of our cars to the homes of these people that are on this list. Do welfare checks on these people, because if Glenn Milner's on his way to get to number 2 or number 3 or number 4 on that list, we better intercept him before he can do more damage, before he can cut another person up.
Yeah, but just to get a visual of what Glenn Milner looks like, he's not an ugly dude. He's a handsome guy. I mean, he has a goofy mullet, but it is 1990. But there also is some images of him where it's like, here's one image where he looks like an attractive young man. And here's another image where you go, what's wrong with his eyes? Like there doesn't seem like there's anything good going on behind them.
No, and it's always the eyes, isn't it? So now police have uncovered this, what appears to be a sinister plan to take a bunch of people out. And now it's a race to find Glenn and a desperate attempt to prevent him from marking any more names off of his list.
All right, we are back. Cheers, mates. Talk hands in the air. Happy
Cheers,
Friday
Captain.
13th.
Cheers to the people in the back. That same night on Friday the 13th, 17-year-old Frankie Garcia, described as a sweet-natured kid, about ready to start his senior year in high school. He had gone with a friend to an old abandoned barn out in the country. This is a place that the locals eerily called the haunted house. It was a dark, empty structure with no electricity. Unbeknownst to Frankie, he was walking into this barn with a killer. Frankie was about to become a pawn in Glenn Milner's deadly game. Witnesses who found the victim's body say that Frankie Garcia apparently was forced to kneel in the dirt and taste the barrel of a high-powered rifle as his killer pulled the trigger. Later, we would see video of Glenn Milner himself talking about his hit list and his plans. And in that video, Captain, he says, quote, "I have a desire to kill.
Yeah.
I know what's wrong. I have no problem distinguishing between right and wrong. I just don't care. It's that I just don't care."
This makes you wonder if there was some kind of psychotic break.
You think? Or if it was just born bad. Who knows? I mean, this one's a difficult one to sort out here. Officers learned from Glenn's parents that he was close friends with this young man named Craig Shackelford. So they're going to go talk to Craig. When they arrive at Craig's house, they find him visibly nervous and on edge. He tells police that Glenn was not the same and that the last time they spoke, that his voice even sounded different. He said that it was like something inside of him had snapped.
Right. That's what I was saying. Psychotic break. And I mean, again, some people don't believe in this, but you start looking up stuff on Ouija boards and these rituals and all this stuff. And I think is it possible that it's some psychotic break, or is it possible that he was messing around with some stuff that is beyond our realm of understanding? And
or
so,
all of the above, right? Because when you say psychotic break, I'm not disagreeing with you. What I think we're seeing here is a severely fractured, splintered mind and psyche. I mean, you could say he had a psychotic break prior to going out and cutting up Jimmy Britton, or you could say that he had a psychotic break before he stood at the top of a water tower threatening to jump, or while he was behind the wheel driving off a cliff.
Well, and that's odd too, right? Because again, one of the toughest times for individuals is those late teens, early 20s, and that's whether you're male or female, right? And so we all have had friends that have in dark times had suicidal thoughts. Most of the time that's something that is acted out privately, and it seems like his attempts were acted out publicly, which is not the normal, right?
When they're talking to Craig, he tells law enforcement that he has a handwritten note from Glenn.
Yeah.
With instructions. It's basically a list of instructions that says something to the effect of don't ask questions, just do as instructed. The note directed Craig to a railroad trestle on a dirt county road about 4 miles northwest of Panhandle, telling him to look for a box and then follow the instructions that he would find inside that box.
What's in the box?
So the officers, they're going to take these instructions. They're going to make their way out to this remote, spooky location. Tucked underneath the bridge, they found a green ammunition box. Of course, opening it is going to be risky. They worried that it could be a bomb, could be some type of booby trap. They have no idea what to expect with this box. But because time is so important, and locating Glenn is so important, and making sure that you can keep, I mean, this is a long hit list that this kid has. And so they're like, F it, we kind of have to open this box. We can't wait to call the bomb squad. And again, 1990. So one of the brave fellas here has to open up the box here, and thank God it didn't explode. Inside, they find 3 handwritten letters and a cassette tape.
So just put yourself in the shoes of the police officer. You're going over to the friend of this maniac, this guy that just slashed up his ex-girlfriend's stepfather. I mean, you don't know this at the time, but 200 stitches, that's insane. And he has a note of these cryptic, weird instructions. I mean, there'd be a part of me that would go, hey, can we stop off at the donut shop real quick and get a coffee and a couple French curlers before I have to go open and figure out what's in this box?
These letters that they find inside here, Captain, we have one was addressed to his friend Craig, one addressed to Glenn's parents, another that was addressed to a young woman named Kenja. So she is an intern at an Amarillo TV station. She had actually graduated from these kids' high school in 1988, and she did date Glenn for a few months one summer. She says she remembered him as a funny, kind, and fun person. And she said that he used to call her princess, but they broke up. You know, first of all, they're teenagers. Second of all, they broke up according to one story I saw that he had kissed another girl, but they remained friends and they would still talk to each other on the phone from time to time. And of course, once she goes off to college, she's dreaming of becoming a news reporter in a major city.
Right.
So the police contact her. They inform her of this note and a videotape that Glenn had left for her. The note was an apology for kissing that other girl. They just said it was an apologetic note. But it ended with him saying to her, but on the upside, hey, here's the story of the decade for you, princess. This videotape contained Glenn's recorded confessions and thoughts and rambling monologue that was partly an apology and also mostly a chilling embrace of his own darkness. So, you've seen portions of this, and on it, he says, Mother, Daddy, I'm sorry that I ended up like this. It's not your fault. He spoke of his dark time, his obsession with evil, idolizing serial killers like Ted Bundy and Jack the Ripper. He mentioned reading Necronomicon, I believe is how you say it, a book of satanic rituals.
Wow.
And a belief that he could become the son of Satan. Now, people that knew him said at some point he adopted the name Damien, a name synonymous with destruction, death, doom, as he described it on the tape. He says it fits me more than anything with the dark side of me that a lot of people haven't seen.
Interesting.
And what you're hearing this young man say in this videotape confession before he's gone out with the attempt to commit these horrific acts is Glenn Milner pretty much is scripting out his own real life horror movie. He's going to be the star of his own real life slasher film that he's living out, let's say.
Was this videotape that he made, was this just a one-off, or was he filming things often?
That I don't know, but this was intended for people to find after he killed everybody. Is my best guess. Yeah, he gives the instructions to Craig, but this would be found either while he's in the process of executing that hit list or shortly thereafter. And in it, on the confession tape, he is saying that he's going to kill these people and he has nothing to lose. This is something he thinks he will be good at. He's always wanted to be better at everybody than at one thing. And he said, this is the one thing that I think I can be really good at. And he explains that after he takes all these people out, he's going to kill himself and he's not afraid to die.
Well, it's also,
he wants to take as many people with him as he possibly can.
It's also interesting too, because sometimes when these people leave these notes behind, or we find journals or something, they're blaming the world. They're blaming the way people treated them. Right. I mean, we see this in some of the writings from Columbine and other things where it's like, people picked on me, or I liked some girls that didn't like me back. But here, Glenn is saying basically the opposite. Like, it didn't matter what my parents were going to do. It didn't matter how other people were going to treat me. I'm evil. And maybe he was evil from the beginning, but it was just now that he was going to just let it go and stop trying to control it.
At 2:45 a.m., the doorbell rang at the home of another family in town. Through the peephole, the man at the door, the homeowner, saw something that made his blood run cold. He said he saw yellow eyes when he looked through the peephole. So he blinks again, thinking that his mind is playing tricks on him. It's the middle of the night. He then says that he saw Glenn Milner standing on his front porch. His gut instant feeling was, this is not good. He says to himself right away, I'm not opening this door. Now, on the other side of that door, you have Glenn Milner pleading with the man, saying, I really need to come inside. I need to go and come inside and talk to you. The man says that he noticed Glenn's hands were hidden when he was requesting to come inside. He says to him, Glenn, what do you got in your hand down there? He doesn't get an answer to his question. Instead, that answer was in the form of gunshots. The man said that the first bullet, so Glenn's firing through the door. The man says that the first bullet felt like being hit with a baseball bat in the gut. The second one blew out his leg from underneath him, and he collapses to the floor. He says his thoughts, this man is Ken Williams. He says his thoughts turned to his wife, Patty, and his children. He was worried that they would not be safe. And he was thinking that Glenn Milner, a young man who he knew, and we'll get into that. I mean, Ken Williams is the principal of the high school.
Right.
He thinks that Glenn Milner's there and going to kill them all, kill his whole family. His wife runs into the room and she takes her fingers and pushes them into his wound in an attempt to stop the bleeding. Williams thinks he's going to die. She is able to not only assist her husband, but at the same time call police. Okay, so they get another call over the radio, and their reaction's like, oh my God, he just did another one. So now you can picture this. We've all, most of us seen this, especially if you've lived in a larger city, a night where calls are just going out over the police radio over and over again. And you just see black and whites, sirens on, police cars crisscrossing town. That's what's going on in Panhandle.
Well, we
night.
know it's Friday the 13th, but I'd be interested to know if it was a full moon as well.
So they get the call they're looking for, or had been waiting on, hoping for anyway. And it's somebody had spotted Glenn Milner's car. It's parked right in front of the Panhandle Police Department. So we have officers rushing to this scene, which is back to where they came from when they started their night. They're rushing back to the police department to surround Glenn's car. He's sitting in the driver's seat with a barrel of a pistol pressed under his chin. He's perfectly still. Later they're going to watch this video cassette. This is the final act of this man's night after these attacks. This young man's got his finger on the trigger.
Yeah, there's probably a part of them, if they know the devastation he already caused, there's probably a part of those officers that are going, pull the trigger.
Yeah, and I can't remember what Glenn said to police, but they're convinced he's going to pull the trigger. And he just puts the gun down, gives them a very blank look, and he said something to them like, I wish I would have added that to my notes here, because he said, whatever he said to him was just like cold and without emotion. Now later, Glenn will reveal to police the bizarre reason that he did not pull the trigger sitting in his car in front of the police station. He told officers that according to his satanic beliefs, he was required to recite a specific chant before taking his own life. And he said in that final critical moment, and having been out running all night, he had forgotten the words to that. And so he was afraid to die without completing what he referred to as the ritual.
Yeah, I'd say, hold on a second. I just need to look this up, and so I can hand it to you. Here's your gun back, and here's the ritual. You can finish the job now. But his confession is dark.
And then think about it from law enforcement, and you've been in your car all night running and running and running, chasing and hoping to find Glenn and hoping to find people alive and well so you can protect them. And this is like a very exciting, not in a good way, exciting night of terror, and just a strange night for Panhandle, Texas. It's an anticlimactic end to that night of terror. Or at least they thought at the time that was the situation, because they arrest the young man. Milner is now in custody. They thought, all right, we can breathe a sigh of relief here. The immediate danger that we were facing has passed.
Yeah.
One officer, reflecting on the tense events, said he felt a profound wave of gratitude that despite all of the chaos that night, everyone was still alive. No lives had been lost. He says it was a fragile peace, a moment to breathe. Well, that moment, unfortunately, was shattered by the crackle of, once again, the police radio. So a call came through to dispatch, a witness. When this police officer says, no lives have been lost, they don't know about Frankie Garcia yet. This is the call that comes in that alerts them that no, they didn't get out, no lives lost that night. So a witness had described the location, the place familiar to locals, the haunted house. They were told on the radio that officers needed to get there and get there fast. So again, this so-called haunted house, it sits on the very edge of town. No one lives there. It's referred to as a relic. It's boarded up. left to the elements and mercy of time. So for a good deal of time, and I found one report that said even for generations, it had been the destination for thrill-seeking teenagers. It's dark. It's the spooky place you go to when you want to scare yourself, or maybe you go out there on a dare.
Yeah.
And as we said, in reality, the haunted house was nothing more than a dilapidated barn. So my understanding, there's an abandoned house, and behind it, there's an even spookier barn. It's a barn without electricity. Its dark interior was a place where kids would gather to drink beer and escape the watchful eyes of parents and the town folk.
Yeah, and when you're out there and you're, playing pocket pool, smoking a couple cigarettes, all of a sudden you hear,
it's a creepy atmosphere.
Yeah, creepy AF.
Responding to the call, the officers, they rush out to the scene. Keep in mind, the barn, the floor inside, it's not wood, it's not concrete, it's packed dirt. So they encounter a horrific sight, very strange, but also very horrific. Scrawled into the earth was what is reported to be a large, crudely drawn pentagram. And there in the very center of that pentagram was the body of, lying face down, there's a body within the circle. It's the motionless form of a teenage boy.
Garcia, yeah.
There was no sign of a struggle, they say, but they also said this wasn't a random act of violence. It was a cold, deliberate execution. It was a dark ritual.
Yeah, there's a sacrifice.
What they would learn is it was an individual whose name had appeared on the hit list that they had recovered. And remember, one by one, names were checked off this list, each person located and accounted for, but one name remained unchecked, and that name was Frankie Garcia. This was the body of Frankie Garcia. And Frankie's parents confirmed that the last time that they had seen their son, he was heading out the door with a friend from school, a person they described as a friend from school. They said that friend was Glenn Milner.
Yeah, and you already know the devastation that he caused. But it's stuff like this, or crimes like this, where you go 1990, and this is kind of the start where it kind of ramps up, and there's this peak of satanic panic, and you're going to tell me that this is not satanic? There's so many cases that we go, oh, well, it's just satanic panic, and they, threw some of these teenagers under the bus because of it, and they almost make it seem in some of these documentaries or these books that like there was no reason to have any satanic panic. I think this case itself should give you reason for satanic panic.
Oh, yeah. And keep in mind, he went out the door on Friday the 13th to start checking names off of his hit list. He left the list behind. That tells me that very likely maybe the words to that chant weren't tattooed on his brain, but I believe, you have to believe, at least several of the names were committed to memory.
Yeah, it's probably a plan that he thought about over and over. Writes down the plan. Well, I don't need to take the note with me because it's all up here. It's all up here in my satanic brain.
On that videotape, he says, "Happy Friday the 13th." Of course, local residents were completely shocked when they heard about this self-professed Satanist who had confessed to murder. Kenneth Glenn Milner, as we said, 19-year-old admirer of Charles Manson and Jack the Ripper. He was charged murdering Garcia. He was also charged with the attempted murders of Kenneth Williams, his former high school principal. We'll circle back to that attempted murder in detail in just a bit. And Milner was also charged with the attempted murder of Jimmy Britton, a former girlfriend's stepfather, all that same night. Milner slashed Britton's throat and arms with a straight razor just shortly after 1 a.m., July 14th. He might not have been all completely evil, though. And I only say that because the report we have here, the report we have here is that when he was cutting Jimmy Britton, attempting to kill him, Milner began vomiting during the attack. And it was only because of that. So he approaches the door. knocks on the door. Britton opens up the door. Milner starts cutting him with this razor. And Milner gets weak during this and starts vomiting. And it was only because of that another member of the family was able to push Milner back outside and close and shut and lock the door.
Yeah, I wonder if he was intoxicated or was using drugs.
Chip Brown had a great title for one of the many Texas and Associated Press news articles about this case. One of his was titled, "Murder of Youth 17 Brings Horror Films to Life in Texas Town." And that is, brings horror films to life in Texas Town is a great way to, in short, succinct way to describe this. Here's portions of that article here, Captain. The 2,300 people who live in this farming town worry that there will be other attacks. Parents closely watch their children, keeping them off the dirt roads that crisscross the rolling wheat fields of the region. Quote, "There is a fear that there are more Satanists out there," said Linda Salas, who has 4 children. She says there are rumors that they are looking for a blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy to sacrifice. And this is a testament to what you were saying earlier about the rise of satanic panic. Well, you get that through acts like this, through real-life true crime stories that would have reason to cause that specific panic.
Yeah, I find this very interesting in the case, how he drove out to this large birthday party, this celebration. I'm guessing he learned of this party through school, right? And so then he gets to the party because he wants to rack up his body count, and he felt sick, and there was other eyewitnesses there that said, well, he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything evil. He didn't try to kill anybody, but he did get sick. A lot of these cases to me just seem so similar. Like that statement, I wanted to rack up a body count. You see this with Columbine, where it's like, yeah, we're going to go in the school and shoot some of these kids, but we got this bomb that will go off and that will rack up this body count. You see this, and if anybody has watched it or hasn't watched it on Hulu, the Scream Murders documentary that just came out, it's a 3-part series. It's definitely worth the watch. But their idea was to commit a Scream-style killing of one of their friends and maybe kill others, and then end their rampage by going into the school and shooting up the school. And when they said on video camera, because they were videotaping themselves, again, another similarity with this case, with Columbine, with the Scream Murders, these individuals videotaping themselves beforehand and afterwards. But when they were talking on videotape for the Scream Murders, they're like, well, once we go to the school and shoot people up, that racks up our body count. So you just see so many similarities with these satanic, evil, demonic, late teens, early 20s killers.
There are some DAs that I just love, and this is one of them. So Carson County District Attorney David McCoy said that he would be seeking the death penalty. He said Milner gave police a written confession in which he said he wanted to die. David McCoy said, quote, "Mr. Milner has indicated a strong desire to die, and I intend to do all I can to see his wishes are accommodated." The court appointed a defense attorney for Milner, his name Douglas Woodburn of Amarillo. He said the trial could begin as early as January of 1991. And he says there has been extensive publicity of the case, and Panhandle is a small town, so that they would be seeking a change of venue. And we know from covering these cases that that is pretty common a lot of times, especially if you have a case like this where it captures the attention of the news, the media, and the public. He says that his client, he doesn't know that his client is a Satanist. He's going to be saying these things to the papers because he has to defend this kid who it's not about defending him to whether he's guilty or innocent. They know that he's guilty. It's about saving this young man's life, making sure that he doesn't get the death penalty. Here's a story that I thought was very eerie. Okay, so we talked about the young man who lost his life, Frankie Garcia, a kid, just a kid. He's getting ready to start his senior year in high school. And so those who knew victim Frankie Garcia, the high school students, of course, they also know the murderer, Kenneth Glenn Milner. They would tell police and anyone willing to listen, this was talked about, that the two were actually not friends. One student had said, this is Ron Dottie, had said, quote, Frankie really got on Glenn's nerves. Frankie tried really hard to be everyone's friend. So when Glenn Milner invited Frankie Garcia to go out on the town with him on that Friday the 13th, Frankie Garcia told Craig Shackelford that he was skeptical. And he says, Glenn doesn't even like me, does he? And so this is a telephone conversation that Shackelford had a couple of hours before with Garcia, before Garcia was killed. Garcia tells Shackelford about Glenn. He's like, he just wants to take me out and pull a prank on me, scare the hell out of me, doesn't he? And it was Frankie's kind nature. Like the other students said at the high school, Frankie tried really hard just to be everybody's friend. And that's why he probably went out with Glenn that night, not knowing that Glenn had intentions of killing him at the haunted house.
Yeah, he probably got out to that haunted house and just thought this is all a prank. This is all a ruse. But if somebody's not making you feel safe or somebody's being mean to you, you just feel bad for this kid because he felt like he had to be polite. He felt like he had to be friendly, even when everything was telling him, don't. You should never apologize for going, hey, this person makes me feel off. This person makes me feel threatened in some way. You don't have to be nice or polite to that person.
In January of 1991, Kenneth Glenn Milner pled guilty to 2 counts of attempted murder and 1 count of murder. He was sentenced to 3 life sentences. He has been up for parole in the past. Thankfully, that parole has been denied. Kenneth Glenn Milner, the Friday the 13th killer, will visit with the parole board once again in 2030.
I want to thank everybody for joining us here in the garage each and every week. Thanks for telling your mother. Thanks for telling your brother. A couple days away from Friday the 13th. So happy Friday the 13th. Yeah, lock your doors. And hey, don't go out to any haunted houses or spooky barns. Colonel, do we have any recommended reading for the beautiful listeners?
Just go to KOGsafe.com and read what Keeping Our Girls Safe, what that great organization is doing. And as said, they have an event coming up, a big fundraiser. They do 2 big ones each year. Their spring event is coming up in April. So if you wish to attend or if you wish to help them out, it's for the girls and the women of our communities to keep them safe. So a great organization. That is KOGsafe.com.
And until next week,
be good, be kind, and don't litter.